Welcome all to the Forged podcast. I am Rich Bryant, and today I am your main host as our usual host, Nicole Tice, is not here with us today, sadly. But I have with me here just an amazing individual, someone who I have the privilege to travel around Lake Hall with Nandi Gamble, our policy analyst at Delaware Family Policy Council. And we're going to be talking about Senate Bill 5. It is the main topic right now that we are battling with amongst the legislature. And we believe that Nandi is just going to be able to give extremely beneficial content, information, and some history behind this bill and why it is important to, one, speak out against it, contact your legislators, and encourage them to do the same thing and to stick up for what's right. So how are you doing today, Nandi?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for that intro, Rich.
Yeah, of course, of course. I'm not committing flattery. It's all truth. So,
Appreciate it.
and I have to say it. I have to say it. You're gonna kill me.
Oh, I know it's
You're gonna hate
coming.
me. You already know what's going on. All
Yep.
right. It's pretty funny. We're both Lord of the Rings fans. All right, and I'm just gonna have to explain my logic. Her name used to be Randolph. Her name's Gamble. Put the two together, Gandalf. So I had to just say it. Okay. All right. Now I've spoken my piece. I'm at peace for the rest of this podcast that I just had to say the very corny thing. All right. So, in all seriousness, I'm just going to ask you very simple questions that I believe many people are wondering. And I'm just going to play someone that is completely ignorant to what's going on right now. So, what is Senate Bill 5? What do we call it? What is the history behind it? I mean, just give me a rundown. And why is it so urgent now? We've heard about it in the past, but why is it like it is do or die, like right now, per what we have been hearing?
So Senate Bill 5 is the Sex Without Responsibility Act, is what we're calling it. Um, this is a bill that would add abortion to Delaware's Constitution directly. Now, it's not just abortion. They're calling it the Reproductive Freedom Act, but no such thing as reproductive freedom. This is sex
Yeah.
without responsibility. So it
Mm,
includes abortion, sterilization, different levels of like infertility, essentially sex without responsibility, completely covered and protected by the state constitution. Um, and this is its the second part of a 2-year session. And the reason why it's so urgent is because this is the last stand. It's literally the last stand. It passed the Senate last year and came to the House this year, passed the House committee, and now it's on the House ready list. It can literally be heard any day on the House floor, and that will be the first half of putting it into Delaware's Constitution.
mm. So, as of right now, like, what's the difference between what abortion laws are currently? Because if you ask any Delaware resident, they're like, it's pretty much no restrictions almost compared to what it will become. As far like what I mean is, what's the difference between how it can be voted against or for in the law right now comparatively to when if it gets enshrined in our constitution? Like, what will it practically look like then?
That's a great question. So, abortion is currently legal in Delaware. In 2017, a bill also dubbed SB 5 was passed that codified it. And within that bill, pretty much there's no restrictions pre-viability. Viability is the sort of medical term of when the baby is able to survive outside of the womb. There's some sort of arbitrary numbers that are thrown. There's a lot of fuzziness around that term. Most medical professionals will say it's somewhere between 20 to 24 weeks, but it's very fuzzy, right? So that's already sort of a subjective term that we're using. Pre-viability, absolute no restrictions, and the current law says that post-viability, it is prohibited unless by the good faith medical judgment of a medical professional,
Mm,
and that is for the health of the mother or if
so
there's
subjective.
it's still subjective, right? For the health of the mother or for fetal anomalies that may be present. So the baby may be born,
Yeah.
but not able to survive, right? Well, because that's so subjective and fuzzy, we still technically have abortion up to 9 months, right? With SB 5, it changes even that standard to include the good faith medical judgment, not just for the health of the mother, but also for the mental health
Yeah.
of the
Mm.
mother, right? Again, another very subjective term that can be used. I don't know how familiar you are with pregnant women, Rich, but if you've ever encountered a woman, especially towards the end of pregnancy, even if they are the most loving mother and want to keep their child, they are tired and they're ready for the pregnancy to end. And they're like, I want my baby to be safe, but I'm tired and I'm done with this. Right. So if a mother who is planning to keep her child can already feel that weight and that mental health strain, right? How how much more can we see a woman who is abortion minded go, you know what? I thought I was going to keep the child, but I'm 7 months in and I just can't do it anymore, doc. And the
Mm.
doctor saying, well, because of SB5, your mental health is in question and allow for that
I
abortion.
mean, could we see lawsuits if doctors don't do that? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, like
Absolutely.
if if a doctor is of within the faith, has religious reasons as to why, like, no, I'm not doing this. I mean, could we see lawsuits happen to doctors who deny that right that women would have? I mean, yeah, it's just so subjective because
Yeah,
that's why I think I point out in my testimony when this was up in the House committee, it's not a stretch to ask, could there be a post viable abortion due to a woman having like clinically diagnosed anxiety?
sure.
Um, and when you just put it into that term, I mean, it's for one, anxiety as a whole amongst the mental health sphere of things has kind of just been, I think, overdiagnosed, as many professionals have admitted.
Mhm.
So, could something that's already super vague, subjective, and quote unquote overdiagnosed by multiple health professionals, as they admit it, be a reason to kill a human being? I mean,
Absolutely.
that's when you put it into that perspective, it's very, very radical. And
Right.
even those who advocated for Roe v. Wade back in the day, I think that a big problem they had is that they never actually saw the logical conclusion of what it could turn into, which is what it
Right.
is now.
Right.
That if this bill passes, by its vague language, yes, a woman who has crippling anxiety due to her pregnancy could say, "I want an abortion now," because it's a strain to her mental health.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
wow.
SB5
Um,
completely extends that.
yeah, 100%. And it also does sterilization as well, correct?
Yes, sterilization
Um,
is included, which if you're looking at what sterilization is, that's, some women do have serious reproductive issues where they require hysterectomy. Um, and it's no part of a transition. It's just, their ovaries, they're just having problems, right? But we know sterilization is also something that is part of that transition process. If someone is attempting to transition into a male or vice versa, they've got to remove their natural healthy sex organs. And
mm,
sterilization includes that. That's part of that
yeah.
process. Again, so we're using terms that are very vague, broad, and have, wide usage.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say like the fetal viability. When I asked someone in leg haul, what is that? I got 24 to 26 weeks.
Yeah,
What's very interesting though is that there are multiple babies within the United States alone who have been born from like 20 to 21 weeks, like Nash Keene in
absolutely.
Iowa. So
Yeah.
my whole logic is this: okay, say it's 21 weeks now. You're
Mhm.
telling me that someone 7 days younger than Nash Keene all of a sudden is just not human? Like
Yeah.
that's just very, the whole fetal viability thing is such a slippery slope from what I've seen.
Yeah.
Um, are there any examples that we've seen where, even though the law says all of it's protected but not post viability, are there any examples that we've seen where there's been just exceptions that were very vague that cause abortions to happen, up to 9 months within Delaware? Because that's the thing that within committee hearings, they're always looking to like dock you on as like, is this an issue in Delaware?
Yeah, yeah.
And
One of
are
the problems with it, honestly, to kind of answer that question is a lot of the abortions that happen in Delaware, they're very poorly documented. So if
mm,
you're trying to look up the numbers, I mean, you're gonna have to scratch through quite a bit, even to just get the most vague list of numbers.
Wow.
What we do know is that the majority of abortions in Delaware happen pre 16 weeks, which would be before that viability stage. There are abortions that happen beyond that, but again, there's no strict requirement on the reporting currently. So there's lots that are following through the cracks.
Yeah. Yeah. So would you say, I mean, already I think the healthcare system just has so many, just they're not being held accountable on so many fronts. I mean, we see that especially
Yeah.
on the federal level. Would you say that the specifically abortion industry, I mean, even falls well below the standards they have currently, which are not good?
Yes, in multiple ways. A very well used example I'll give, if you go to any sort of medical situation. I actually just had something with my tooth recently,
Mm,
and the dentist did not ask me. He just took the X-ray and then brought the X-ray in front of me, showed me all the things he was going to do, told me when I'd feel pain, when I wouldn't, all of the things. I got all of that explanation. And if we've ever had a medical procedure that required any sort of digital imaging, that was done. That was part of
yeah.
um, the doctor's standard, medical standard to follow. Women don't experience that with abortions. They
Mm,
don't get shown the ultrasound to say,
yeah.
here's how I'm going to take apart the live baby in your womb. They don't get shown that. They don't even get offered that. So to answer that question, absolutely, the standards that are applied to abortion are so much lower already than what the medical standard is across the board.
Yeah, I mean, and there's two things I really want to emphasize because there's two separate bills that really pertain to what we just talked about. Well, for one, I
Mhm.
want to say I'm going to be very clear that yes, we keep mentioning late term abortions and everything like that, but all abortions are deplorable
Absolutely.
and an affront to God. Okay,
Mhm.
so early term abortions as well, prior to
Yes.
16 weeks, horrible, right? Because the heartbeat of a child starts very very early on, and even prior to
Even
that,
before the
even before
heartbeat.
that, the
Absolutely.
entire genetic code of a child is written out. Right? I mean,
Yeah.
so at just to break it down, it's just a matter of development.
Yes.
And that's really what it is. So you're just preying on people that are simply younger than you.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like that is what we are trying to emulate and to say that it's just a matter of a human that's just less developed, and we don't kill humans for being less developed.
Right.
So that's point one. Okay, so and I mentioned that because SB 251, the pain capable bill,
Mhm.
was I think is really relevant to that point. But as far as accountability goes, SB 252, which was the ultrasound bill, could you just
Right.
explain that? And we tried our best to advocate for just simple, basic measures of making sure that women are fully informed before they
Right.
do their abortion. And I mean, they would just rip to shreds, and the committee didn't even pass committee,
Yeah.
which shows you where our culture is inside the legislature. Could you just explain what that bill is and
Yeah.
really what the atmosphere was like when we were there that day, when we just essentially were told no?
Yeah. Yeah. SB 252, it's a bill that we have attempted a few times, more than a few times at this point. And it would fix the problem, the very problem that I just mentioned, that women would be offered to see the ultrasound. So it wouldn't even force them. Again, my dentist did not ask me if I wanted to see the x-ray of my tooth. He just pulled it in front and said, this is what I'm going to
I was
do.
at the dentist too the other day, right? I mean, I was like, I don't want to see these problems, but
Right.
I have to. So,
Right. They just show it to you. I had
mhm.
surgery on my knee and I got the full digital imaging. It looked absolutely gross. Thankfully, I wasn't squeamish. But this bill says, we're just going to offer the mother to see the ultrasound, trying to raise that medical standard a little bit, give her, because she has the right to know, actually give her that option to look.
Yeah,
And Dr. Sheila Page gave a wonderful presentation, beautiful, powerful with pictures to show exactly, um, you know, what this child's capacity is and how we should be protecting life, how we should be protecting the right of the mother. But the bill was shut down. It was a very hostile committee, and during my testimony, even a couple of the legislators were kind of dozing off and falling asleep. So,
Yeah, it's
not
just
very encouraging when
super,
you're,
super sad.
yeah, not very
In fact,
encouraging when you're standing for life.
one of the testifiers actually used a statistic from the organization that the uh, expert witness from the opposing side used, right? So the organization that the lady from from the opposing side, the expert witness, the organization she works for, a testifier brought up their own statistics, which showed
Uh,
that they did a study. They showed, I think, 65,000 women, or give or take, the ultrasound, and many still went forward with it. And her
yes.
point was, you keep saying that we're trying to hinder the amount of like this is just going to limit access to abortion.
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
actually does not.
Yeah.
It really does not at all. This is a matter of, we want to make sure that women just actually know who, not what, but who is
Right.
in them.
Right.
And they see for their very eyes. And for a culture that's all about bodily autonomy, shouldn't you be about, bodily knowledge of what's inside of you, if you really want to
Yeah.
make good
You'd
decisions?
think so.
Yeah, exactly. You would think so. And honestly, if outside of any context of abortion, they would
Hmm.
say yes, amen, right? But
Right.
of course, in this context, they're like, no, no, no. It's just that's actually rude. That's damaging. Uh,
Right.
that's that is traumatic. What's traumatic is when a woman has done something and then she comes to know later what she actually did when she could have known what she was doing then. That's traumatic, when there is an action that she cannot take back because she was
Yeah.
never actually fully informed. That
Yeah.
is what I would say is traumatic. And just to give a little recap on what SB 251 was, as well, just to emphasize that we're not just advocating for abortions to be, limited, post viability. Like, we want to emphasize that no, all abortion is bad, and there is evidence for that. I mean, there was
Hmm.
doctors on the expert witness side that the sponsor brought up to show this evidence. Yet again, it was still dismissed. So SB 251, if you could kind of just explain that as well.
Yeah, so we had the Women's Right to Know Act, which was the ultrasound bill, and then we have the pain capable. And that one is essentially recognizing the ability of the preborn to feel pain and to be as humane as you can in such an inhumane act, to say, you know what, at this point that they can feel pain, we're not going to murder them. So it would prohibit abortions at that point.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
of course, these were heard in the same committee. The same level of hostility for the prior bill was also on this bill as well. And one thing I'll say is that I think a lot of legislators, no matter what side of the fence they sit on the issue, um, can recognize that there's some level of regulation that is needed within this space, right?
Hmm.
Um, just to kind of go back to the bill, SB 5 would completely dismantle all of the regulations that we currently have.
Mm.
There's a specific phrase within the bill that says reproductive freedom shall not be denied, burdened, or infringed upon.
Cringed. Yeah.
So the attempts for SB 251, 252 would be completely shut down. Even some of the regulations that we currently have in code, like minors requiring parental notification prior to an abortion, that could easily be struck down as unconstitutional. SB 5 passes because it's
Mm.
a burden, right? Their rights should not be
Yeah.
infringed upon, should not be burdened in any way. Um, so just with all the other bills that we've already mentioned and several others that have either passed or been discussed, it would completely change the conversation moving forward if a bill like SB 5 were to pass, because it would be unconstitutional.
And I just really want to emphasize to people watching this, because the question is, abortion's already gone this far. Like, why fight against it now?
Mm.
Uh, for one, Nani and I are in there, and there are legit activists who are legislators,
Hmm.
meaning this is like their dream. This to becomes a constitutional amendment, and then
Yeah.
boom, they just get to shred every other single restriction away because the judges will determine this is actually goes against what the Constitution says now. So I
Right.
don't think you realize that, you know, most of your a lot, well, I shouldn't say that. I should say a lot of your legislators in there um, are not just in there to, redo the tax code, right? Like they're actual activists.
Yeah.
They are, and their sole purpose of being there is to address a social issue, which whether
Mhm.
it would be transgenderism, abortion, like we have seen that. So for you to say, oh, like it's already gone as far as good, it actually has not. And the reason why it hasn't is because there has been groups like us that have just fought tooth and nail to not let it go as far as it could be, which they are attempting to bring it that far
Yeah.
now. So just know that yeah, abortion has gone very far comparatively to many other states. However, it can go a lot further, and therefore like your fight in this, you contacting your legislator and saying vote no on this, stand for what's right, it's not in vain, it's not
Yeah.
futile at all. This has a real purpose because doing that is protecting our constitution from adapting something that the activists would just have a field day with, and that's
Mhm.
just, we need to understand that. um, I really want to also talk about why, in regard to legislators, why I think this election cycle matters. Could you just explain the current makeup of our legislature when it comes to like how this will probably, in all reality, be voted on as what our legislator is, how our legislature is now? Like,
Yeah.
what is the current makeup of this? If you could emphasize this.
Absolutely. So, as I mentioned, it's already passed the Senate, and in the Senate, it passed purely on party lines. The Democrats have a supermajority in the Senate, and as a constitutional amendment, it requires a two-thirds vote. Well, they
Which is
have
super majority. Yeah.
exactly, which is a supermajority. So, because this has been a party line issue, it passed as pretty much a no-brainer in the Senate. On the House side, if it were to follow that same pattern and be voted on based on party lines, it would require 28, that would be the two-thirds mark, 28 to pass this bill in the House. There's 27 Dems, and the remaining of the 41 are Republicans. So if it again follows that same pattern, they would be one short of a vote, if it just fell down party lines. Uh, it's a huge issue, and it's something that we have historically seen for the most part that Republicans will vote against, Democrats will vote for. There are definitely people that will stray from that on both sides of the aisle, because of their own convictions or thoughts on the issue. But we're that close of a margin is very uncomfortable when you know the reality of the damage that this sort of bill could do. And as a constitutional amendment, if it passes, how long it could take to topple, right? It took us 50 years to topple Roe v. Wade, and
Mm,
all the damage that was done in that process, both to women and the babies that were ripped from their wombs.
mm.
Us establishing SB5 is not something that, oh, well, we'll just deal with it in 2028 or something like that. We could be looking at this for the next several decades. And how
Yeah.
many children and women and families will be harmed in that time frame? It's not something to sit on the fence for at all.
And let me just emphasize that we are nonpartisan. We are
Absolutely.
nonpartisan. But the reality is, with this particular issue, um, if they were to go amongst party lines,
Hmm.
this would be stopped by one vote. Um, which that seems like, oh yeah, good, we're fine. No, because elections happen and people
Yeah.
get primaried, people lose seats, people gain seats.
People retire.
Yeah, exactly. And do you just magically think they're gonna forget about SB5? No, they're actually gonna like have a bunch of fuel. Like, oh wow, this is only one vote away, and this is like their first time bringing this up to be a constitutional amendment.
Yeah.
No, this is gonna be motivation if it only, you know, gets stopped by one vote. So my encouragement is to, for this election cycle, don't just consider, uh, what party are they, right?
Hmm.
That's not the point of this conversation. But ask this simple question that I've been posing to you through here, or just personally, if you see me and you ask me about elections. what does your legislator think about God? What does this candidate think about God? That will impact
Mhm.
everything that they do. Because here's what, if they say, oh, they respect and honor God, which is our entire mission, by the way, that leaves room for you, citizen, to go to them and be like, okay, if you said that, put your money where your mouth is.
Mhm.
Break down the scriptures to them. Is this advocating for good or evil? And if they are seeking to honor God, the clear answer is this is advocating for evil. Pressure them, right? Because diamonds are made out of pressure.
Hmm.
That is that is our ask of you, citizen. You don't have to be some expert or some genius on this, but know what your candidate thinks about God and pressure them in result of that answer.
Right.
And that is that I think that if I could, beat something into your heads, that is what it is.
Yeah.
Ask your candidate about who God is. Um, a quick question I have is, so you've been in the sphere of Family Policy Alliance for a good bit now, and you were in Florida, correct?
Yes.
And now you're here.
Mhm.
And so, cumulatively, how many years have you been involved with
That
all
is a
of
great
this?
question. Well, I started in Florida in 2015.
Okay,
There was a little bit of a pause there, but I'd say almost 10 years total.
so over nearly a decade, what has the culture of abortion been like that you've seen? Like explain to me this slippery slope, right? And you've also been in quite frankly, two very different states as well.
Yeah.
So you saw a state that generally many people will point to in the U.S. and say, see, they're hostile towards abortion, even though I
Mhm.
disagree. That I think Florida still has some ways to go. But obviously, you've come to a state where many states will point to and say, see, they're friendly with abortion.
Mhm.
What are like the slippery slopes you've seen that just essentially due to inactivity of people going against this, you've seen abortion be able to become magnified, but also, what are the different cultures like from being in one that generally was not for abortion as much compared to one that advocates for it? What does the
Mhm.
legislator look like?
That is a very good question. So in Florida, when I was there, um, I don't think it was nearly as red as it feels now. And the abortion issue was not split down party lines, actually. One of our biggest champions for abortion was a Democrat legislator, Representative Daphne Campbell, that was very, very loud about being pro-life, much to the chagrin of her party.
Yeah.
But I think in Delaware, what I see, what especially when it comes to this issue, there's a lot more party line focus, and not much crossing,
Mm.
um, which is problematic for a lot of different reasons. Um, but yeah, something that I saw in or in Florida too that's a little bit different is the way that a constitutional amendment, or the Constitution is changed in Delaware. In Delaware is different than it is in Florida. In Delaware, 2/3 vote of the legislature, over 2 consecutive sessions, and then it's law. In Delaware, the Constitution can only be amended I think every 20 years.
Mm.
And then at the 20-year mark, they basically have this long sort of journey of deciding what they're going to put on a ballot and the citizens vote.
And this is for Florida, right?
This is for Florida,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And so there's a panel essentially that's made up of multiple different individuals. It's picked by multiple different individuals. I think it's like 20 or so people total. I don't remember the number, but it looks very different. And so it's a much more drawn out process because it's very weighty, changing our state constitution. And one of the struggles that I have here with Delaware, and then also there, when the legislature has committee hearings, it's not just one committee hearing and then the floor, you have a couple of different readings. So one bill goes to more than one committee and then the floor.
Mm.
Um, Again, really mulling over the issue to figure out, is this something that is good for our state? And one of the scary parts about a bill like SB 5 is even though it goes through two consecutive legislative sessions, um, it doesn't nearly get the amount of thought and um, long process, and yet it can be a part of our long-term state constitution.
Yeah, that's just, and like you said, party lines are much more emphasized here.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
with that being a reality, needing 2/3, I mean, essentially needing parties to change in Delaware,
Yeah,
which, let's just be real, won't happen. You know, that, like, and for something as such as abortion, to need that to overturn it, whereas right now it's a majority vote.
yeah,
That's what's at stake here, that
yeah.
people, I think, need to realize. So is this urgent? Absolutely. But I also don't say that being some negative Nancy, right? Because the reality is, we want you guys to come to committee, speak the word of God, to do so with charity and grace, and to not, and to do also to do so with knowing what you're talking about. But point is, get out there and speak, because everything that you say is not in vain.
Yeah.
Um, this is a fight worth fighting. This is the good fight, I would say. Being on the side that chooses life, because the reality is that pregnancy, it's not a disease. It's
Mhm.
not some disease, right? It's a beautiful thing. And there are
Stage of
so
life.
many, yes, 100%. And there's so many pregnancy centers that I've just been able to interact with recently that, like, they're an option. And what's sad is this is, the side that is advocating for abortion claims that they are pro-choice. I would disagree. Pro-choice and pro-abortion are two different things.
Mhm.
Because if you actually are pro-choice, you will emphasize the choice of pregnancy centers. They're a choice as well, but why is no
Mm,
one speaking about them?
right.
Because I believe that it is quite literally life versus death, that's going on right now in our legislature. So be aware of that. We have legislative trackers on our site. Please, if you want to know from the biblical worldview where we stand on these issues, read it. And don't just think that the biblical worldview inside of our leg hall is some dream that we have to just only imagine if one day this could be a reality. No, go make it a reality. Get involved. Come testify. That is my big encouragement to you. Um, so just to reemphasize kind of what we talked about what SB5 is, the history
Mhm.
behind it, what is quite literally at stake, the other bills that relate to it, and how we've seen them just get shot down, that would deal with a lot of the questions. And if SB5 gets passed, a lot of these regulations that we have right now could be shot down because they would be deemed as unconstitutional. Is that correct, Nandi?
That's it.
Yeah, and also just we talked about the reality of where our legislator stands, the makeup of it, and why this election cycle is important. Again, don't ask your legislator what party they are. Ask your legislator what God they serve, and
Mhm.
do they serve the true triune biblical God? That is something to consider. I really want to encourage you guys. For this, to take action against Senate Bill 5, to contact your legislator, and to really emphasize for them to stand up for what is right. Go to DelawareFamilies.org/protect life. Again, DelawareFamilies.org/protect life. And that will direct you to a bunch of action steps that you can take that we will be so appreciative if you would do so. And one last thing I just want to say, if there's any legislators watching this, and this is so important, I don't know. For one, I'm thankful that you guys are in the legislature. We thank you for your work. It's a beautiful sacrifice, nonetheless, that you have made. But I would just simply ask you to vote for what is right, to vote with your conscience. Do not vote simply because your party says to vote this way, but vote according to your conscience. What do you think about God? Vote in accordance with that. Because God is not just some idea if you believe he is real, but no, he is a true, real person. And we are accountable for our decisions in this life. Therefore, vote in accordance with what he has told you to do within your spirit, your conscience. Thank you so much, guys. We're going to head out of here. It was a pleasure having you. And again, please subscribe, comment your thoughts, and please take action on that link that we will have down in our bio. God bless, and we will see you next time.